You know the feeling, right? You get this incredible burst of energy for a new project, maybe a new habit or a new course you're excited about. You go out, you buy all the stuff, you map out the perfect plan, you even tell all your friends. And then, fast forward a few weeks, and it's just sitting there collecting dust in a corner. It's so frustrating, and pretty much everyone goes through it. But what if I told you that the reason you don't finish what you start has way less to do with your willpower and a whole lot more to do with your own body's chemistry? Yeah, let's get into the actual biology of why we quit.
Just take a second and think about it. What comes to mind? That half-written novel just sitting on your hard drive? The fancy running shoes you wore, 3 times? Or that online course where you're still stuck at 10% complete? It's a super familiar feeling, isn't it? You are definitely not the only one.
And this right here captures that emotional roller coaster perfectly. Starting something new feels incredible. It's all excitement, high energy, pure commitment. But the second we stall out, those feelings get replaced by this nasty cocktail of guilt, avoidance, and just deep frustration. It's a painful cycle for sure, but understanding why it happens is the absolute first step to breaking it.
Okay, so this is the most important idea we're going to talk about. I really want you to let this sink in. It is not about you being lazy or undisciplined or weak. The real reason you quit is hardwired deep inside your brain. It's tied to your nervous system's #1 job. So let's unpack the 4 big biological hurdles that are always getting in your way. First up, your brain. It isn't actually designed for things like project completion. Its #1 priority, above everything else, is simply survival. And that one little fact changes everything about how you should approach a hard task. So, think about this. When you hit a really tough spot in your project, a moment where you feel uncertain or uncomfortable, your nervous system doesn't see it as a fun creative challenge. No way. It registers it as a threat. It literally sends out a danger signal, and your deepest instinct is to stop, to get away, to retreat back to safety. And that's all procrastination really is. It's just an avoidance loop that's designed to protect you from something that feels dangerous. So how do you actually hack this system? Well, it's surprisingly simple. It's called the 5-minute rule. Look, don't tell yourself you have to finish the whole chapter. Just commit to writing for 5 minutes. That's it. Don't aim for a 5-mile run. Just focus on putting on your shoes and jogging for 5 minutes. See, an action that small, it's not big enough to trigger your brain's alarm system. It basically sneaks past the guards. And what you're doing is teaching your body, hey, this is safe. And that's how you break that avoidance loop and start to build some real momentum. Now for our second hurdle. This one explains why, even if you get past that initial fear, you often hit the most dangerous part of any project, the middle. This is where your motivation seems to just evaporate into thin air. And it all comes down to a little chemical in your brain called dopamine. Think of it like a motivation desert. Starting a project gives you a huge hit of dopamine because it's new and exciting. And finishing a project also delivers a massive dopamine reward. But the middle? We call that the dopamine gap. It's this long, often boring grind with 0 chemical rewards in sight. So your brain, which is always seeking pleasure, just loses interest and starts looking for a distraction. Anything for a quick, easy dopamine fix. So the strategy here is to create your own dopamine. Don't just wait for the finish line. You have to break your huge project down into tiny, tiny, achievable milestones. And this part is key. You've got to reward yourself for finishing each little piece. Wrote 1 paragraph? Great, get up and have a coffee. Coded 1 single feature? Awesome, watch a funny 5-minute video. This trains your brain to connect the process, not just the final outcome, with pleasure. And that's what keeps you going through that long middle stretch. Okay, our third reason moves a little bit from pure biology into psychology. But trust me, it's just as important. Sometimes the problem isn't how you're working, it's what you're working on. And you have to ask yourself a really tough question. And I want you to pause for a second and really think about that. Was it because of your own deep, burning desire? Or was it something you just felt you should be doing? The answer here is incredibly important because your brain, it knows the difference. We call these borrowed goals. They're the ambitions we pick up from what we see on social media or what our parents expect or just from comparing ourselves to other people. They look really good on the outside, but inside, they don't have any genuine personal meaning for us. And if a goal isn't authentically yours, your brain just won't give it the long-term energy it needs to see it through. It's as simple as that. And here's the crucial part. If you realize you're chasing a borrowed goal, it is 100% okay to change course. This isn't failing, it's called alignment. Sometimes real growth isn't about just gritting your teeth and pushing through. It's about having the wisdom to know what you really need to walk away from. All right, this brings us to our final and honestly the most counterintuitive reason we don't finish things. You might be right there at the finish line, about to get the very thing you said you wanted, and then you just stop. Why? Well, because you might be unconsciously afraid of what happens next. See, success isn't just an end point. It's a whole new beginning. It can bring more visibility, higher expectations, a total change to your identity. And to your nervous system, which absolutely loves predictability, all of that unknown stuff is terrifying. It can actually feel safer to stay in that familiar struggle of almost there than to step into the big, scary uncertainty of what now. This is self-sabotage in its purest form. So you have to actively teach your body that success is safe. How do you do that? You celebrate every single little win. Write them down. Acknowledge your progress out loud. This reinforces the idea that moving forward is a good thing, a positive thing. It helps rewire your nervous system to see achievement not as a threat, but as a welcome, natural part of your growth. So, there we have it. We've covered the 4 major biological roadblocks: your brain feeling unsafe, that dreaded dopamine gap, chasing borrowed goals, and the hidden fear of success. Now let's pull all of this together into a clear, actionable toolkit that you can actually use. All right, so this is your cheat sheet. It puts everything we just talked about into one simple framework. When that brain of yours feels unsafe and you start procrastinating, bam, you hit it with the 5-minute rule. When you're lost in that motivation desert, that dopamine gap, you create your own little rewards with those tiny milestones. Feeling like maybe this isn't even your goal, that's your cue to pause and really dig into your why. And if you find yourself hitting the brakes right at the finish line, you remind yourself, you affirm that success is totally safe. This right here is the ultimate takeaway. Seriously, stop trying to brute force your way through projects with willpower alone. That is like trying to swim against a really powerful current. It's exhausting and you won't get far. Instead, you need to understand the current. You need to work with your brain's natural tendencies, not fight them. That is how you finally move from always starting to actually finishing. So, with this new understanding of your own biology, I want you to look back at those unfinished projects. The game has totally changed. You now have the strategies to outsmart your brain's ancient survival instincts and finally cross that finish line. The only question left is, which one are you going to start with?